Over the years, hundreds of Muppet characters have appeared, with some of them cementing a legacy appearing in production after production over the course of several decades, but not every character is so lucky. Hello everybody, and welcome back to Mupptown Funk. I'm your host Ty, and today I want to tell you guys the story of 5 Muppet characters who lost their fame. Over the years, so many Muppet characters have continued appearing, but there's an equal amount, possibly even a greater amount, that have simply stopped appearing. Something I find so fascinating about the Muppets as a franchise is how they treat their characters. Major characters could go missing just like that. Obscure characters could suddenly become prominent, and characters that have been gone for decades could suddenly appear again in brand new roles. It's really interesting. But today, I want to focus on characters that haven't shown up in quite a while, or at the very least, haven't had a significant role in a long time. These are 5 Muppets who lost their fame. Let's get started. The Talking Houses. There are several characters from the first season of The Muppet Show that simply didn't carry over into future productions, and the Talking Houses always stood out to me as a prime example of this. The Talking Houses starred in a series of sketches where they simply made brief, house-themed puns.
My brother has ghosts in his attic.
Sounds scary.
Yeah, he's on the 10 most haunted list.
I was always really fascinated by the designs of the houses themselves. They are really unique puppets, completely different from anything else we'd ever seen on The Muppet Show. And I love the fact that they are in the ground on a street. It really makes them stand out. Though I will say, I always found something kind of eerie and weird about these sketches. I think it's just how dark the lighting is and how old the houses look. I don't know, something feels off about them to me. Anyway, the houses were voiced by, from left to right, John Lovelady, Jerry Nelson, Frank Oz, and Aaron Oskar. After only 7 sketches in the show, the Talking Houses stopped appearing, and we don't know why. That's the thing with a lot of these characters. We don't have an official reason as to why they stopped appearing. The Talking Houses have been referenced a few other times, albeit only in books. I distinctly remember there being a Talking Houses sketch in one of the Muppet Show comic books from a few years back. They were also given a page in the Muppets Character Encyclopedia in 2014, where it actually mentions their absence. The book says, quote, "They left show business when the other houses on their street threatened to relocate if the jokes didn't stop." I don't know if we'll ever see the Talking Houses again. With Muppet characters, I always try to never say never, but these guys are in a really weird position where you can't really include them in anything unless they're isolated on their own, just the houses. Gladys. The first season of The Muppet Show that I ever watched was actually season 3. I was showing interest in watching some Muppet stuff as a kid, and my parents bought me the season 3 DVD as a gift. Why they started with 3, I don't know, but I think the DVD had just recently come out at the time. But Season 3 featured a brand new location in the Muppet Theater, which was prominently featured in a lot of its early episodes. The Canteen. It was a cafeteria where the Muppets would eat and hang out. A new character named Gladys, performed by Richard Hunt, was created to work here at the Canteen.
Yeah,
What's the soup du jour?
same as yesterday.
Good, I'll have that and the chicken.
Now, how do you want your chicken? Baked, broiled, or barbecue?
I want the chicken for company. I hate to eat alone.
For a second there, I thought you was one of them weirdos. I still do.
Gladys is kind of a stereotypical diner waitress character. She's sweet, but she's also very kind of over the top. She's the type of person that you wouldn't really want serving you because you don't want a high level of human interaction when you're trying to eat mediocre food, but she would be there anyway. She's the type of person to start clapping when they sing Happy Birthday at Friendly's. The Canteen would appear in seasons 3 and 4 of The Muppet Show, but Gladys wouldn't even last that long. She would stop appearing halfway through season 3 for, once again, unknown reasons. Much like the Talking Houses, her only appearance since has been in book material, with some cameos in the Muppet Show comics and a page in the Character Encyclopedia, letting you know that they do still acknowledge that Gladys existed. Cool. I always liked Gladys. I'd like to see her come back someday, but who knows at this point. Oh, she also appears in the Rainbow Connection finale of the Muppet movie, but what Muppet that was being used around the time of season 3 didn't, right? Denise. Denise is a rare case of a Muppet character who was written out due to story reasons. She was created for the 2015 ABC Muppet Show to be Kermit's new girlfriend. While in the show's pilot, she simply reused Pamela Henderson's puppet, Denise was fully rebuilt and given her own design for the official show. She was portrayed by Julianne Buescher, who gave her a bit of a southern accent and a very sweet personality. She was honestly pretty good for Kermit. Denise was kind of written as just this really nice, really sweet girlfriend character, but as the show continued and major shakeups happened behind the scenes, Denise was slowly but surely written out, getting progressively more upset at Kermit as he started to focus more on his work, and as such, focus a bit more on Piggy. A few episodes before the end of the series, Denise and Kermit would break up off screen, and Denise hasn't appeared since. While a lot of the character changes and obscure characters brought to the forefront in the 2015 show have stayed in future Muppet productions, Denise is yet to return, and I honestly don't know if she ever will because, again, she's the rare case of a character who is actually written out for story reasons. If you want to hear more about the full history of Denise, as well as how I feel they kind of failed her as a character, I did a whole video on her a few years back that you could check out. I'll link it up in the card. The Muppets. One of the funniest concepts that 2011's The Muppets introduced is a Muppet knockoff band called The Muppets, featuring such classic characters as Kermit, Janus, Rolf, and my personal favorite, Animal, who's actually just Dave Grohl. I absolutely love the designs for these guys. They are so funny. They were performed by Matt Vogel for Janus and Rolf, Dave Goelz for Kermit, and David Rudman for Miss Poogie. I love that they went out of their way to make sure that none of the Muppets were voiced by the Muppeteers of their regular counterparts. It's really fun. In the movie, we see them perform at a casino, and when they're on stage, they do dress up a bit more like the Muppets. But they're not fooling anyone. I know that the real Rolf doesn't have a goatee and angry eyebrows. Wait, guys, I just realized Kermit has a metal collar. That's amazing. Oh, I love this movie so much. Kermit and the gang find Fozzie performing here, down on his luck as always, and of course convince him to rejoin the Muppet team, but the Muppets come back a bit later on when Miss Piggy refuses to rejoin the Muppets, and so they decide to reluctantly cast Miss Poogie in her place. Of course, Miss Poogie leaves when the real Miss Piggy returns, but the whole gang appears at the very end of the movie, acting as henchmen for Tex Richmond, the film's main antagonist, complete with a new member, Foozie, performed by Tyler Bunch, replacing Fozzie, although unfortunately, it seems Animal didn't show up here. Now you'd think that, much like Denise, that would be the end for these characters. They served a story purpose, they were defeated, and we wouldn't see them again. But that's not really the case. Well, it's the case for all of the Muppets, except one. As a few years later, Miss Poogie would actually reappear in the film's sequel, Muppets Most Wanted, having a couple brief lines as one of many prisoners in the Russian gulag that Kermit gets locked up in, continuing her role as clearly a very bad person, or very bad celebrity impersonator pig. Now, I thought this would certainly be the end for Miss Poogie. You know, she's part of like a rival Muppet group. She was in jail, played a small villain role in both of these films, but she's actually had a couple of cameos in Muppet productions since then. She appeared in the Parade of Obscure Muppet Characters segment of the Muppets Take the Bowl and O2 shows. And in 2020, she was one of Miss Piggy's featured guests in her segment on Muppets Now. And in 2021, she appeared, albeit only in a painting, in the Muppets Haunted Mansion special, where she's one of 3 pigs recreating the iconic men falling into quicksand stretching portrait. Thanks to her appearance there, there's actually some official merchandise of her now. So while the rest of the Muppets have completely stopped appearing, Miss Poogie is in this really unique position where, despite being a villain that's not even part of the Muppets, she still gets some pretty consistent cameos, albeit she's pretty obscure and forgotten about by a lot of people, I'd say. I'm honestly really interested in seeing where they take her after this, if anywhere. And finally, the fifth character on our list, Rizzo the Rat. Rizzo needs absolutely no introduction. He's one of the most popular Muppet characters of the last few decades. Originally appearing in 1980 in Season 4 of The Muppet Show, he was portrayed by Steve Whitmire, who took a liking to a group of old Muppet rat puppets and decided to start making costumes for one of them, naming him Rizzo. Rizzo would catch on, having a rather prominent role in the third Muppet movie, The Muppets Take Manhattan, as a waiter at a Manhattan diner. Rizzo's role would really expand over time, with the wisecracking rodent gaining major prominence in several 1990s Muppet productions, narrating A Muppet Christmas Carol alongside Gonzo. The success of this pairing would cause the two to continue to be paired up in future Muppet productions, including the Muppet Treasure Island film and Muppets from Space. Rizzo would have a major behind-the-scenes role in Muppets Tonight, playing off of several other characters, new and old, and would continue to show up through the 2000s. And while he continued to make consistent appearances in the late 2000s and into the 2010s, he would only have small cameo roles in 2011's The Muppets and 2014's Muppets Most Wanted, with him even having a joke in the latter about how underutilized he'd been.
We sure spent a lot of time on it.
I'll say. Maybe even at the expense of other long-standing beloved Muppets. Come on, Robin.
Coming.
By the way, I also got a lot of suggestions from people to talk about Robin the Frog in this video. If I do a part 2, I'll definitely cover him. In 2015's The Muppets, Rizzo would be riding high once again as a very prominent character, often being paired up with Pepe and sometimes Gonzo for several plots and subplots. We would also follow his romantic escapades attempting to woo Yolanda the Rat, a minor character from Muppets Take Manhattan, who was brought back for the series. I just want to take a moment to stress just how significant of a character Rizzo was in these productions. He had such a large role in so many Muppet shows and movies over the course of decades. He was always around, typically in a major capacity. In 2016, he even got his very own pizza restaurant in Disney World. Now, I just took a Disney trip last month, and I can confirm the pizza there is not the most appealing, but still, it's impressive that he got this. By the way, if you want to see more of my trip, I have a massive Disney World vlog coming to the channel very soon. Okay, shameless plug over. Anyway, in the summer of 2017, Rizzo's puppeteer and the originator of the character, Steve Whitmire, would be let go from the Muppets, with Whitmire and Disney both stating several reasons as to why he was let go, including union disagreements and poor business conduct on Whitmire's end. Following his departure, Whitmire's characters would be given to different Muppeteers, with Peter Linz taking Lips and Link Hogthrob, David Rudman taking Beaker, and Matt Vogel taking up the mantle of Kermit. But Rizzo wasn't recast. In fact, Rizzo still hasn't been recast 8 years later. Rizzo has been almost entirely dropped from the Muppets cast, only making small, non-speaking appearances in future productions like the Muppets live shows and Muppets Haunted Mansion. But during this time, Rizzo has still been acknowledged as a character, getting an action figure a few years ago, his restaurant is still operating, at least for the next few months, and even appearing quite prominently in baby form in the Muppet Babies reboot. So he's in this really weird limbo state right now, where he's appearing, but only really outside of mainstream Muppet productions. Rizzo's current position is really awkward, and to me it's emblematic of just how messy Whitmire's departure from the crew was. Honestly, I don't know where Rizzo should be taken from here. I don't like the fact that as soon as his puppeteer left, they decided to practically remove the character when all of his other characters were recast. Perhaps it was because Steve Whitmire originated Rizzo and he really made the character, and that's why there are hang-ups on recasting him, but I feel like if you don't want to recast him, then stop showing him in cameo roles, right? Personally, I think we should bring back Rizzo. He's a very popular character, and I think he deserves to be recast and continue making appearances, especially considering it's now been almost a decade since his last appearance. Rizzo's strange role recently is, in my opinion, a microcosm of some of the larger issues with the Muppets as a franchise right now. One of the main, most popular Muppets is just in this awkward limbo state, and we don't know where they're gonna go with him. But here's hoping Rizzo can come back at some point soon and speak once again. And there you have it, guys, a look at 5 Muppet characters who have lost their fame over the years. Which of these characters do you want to see return most, or do you not want to see these characters return? Let me know down in the comments, and also let me know what characters you'd like to see me talk about in future episodes. I'd love to do a sequel about this. We're only scratching the surface of Lost Muppets. Anyway, guys, thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye now.